love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah, man. I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. As Tuesday we had a full crew. We're running a little lean today, Charles, so it's going to be lean. And I. Ooh-wee. But it is episode 699, so that means we're just one short of the magical 700, boy. That's a feat. In fact, I'm going to ask you what your thoughts are on that. But let me do the intro. Let me do it the proper way. This is Dr. Cavil Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is out on assignment, and our guests are moving about and doing their things like AED in Wilton, but you never know when they'll be at the forefront in giving us their thoughts on HBCU Sports of the Week. Welcome to episode 699 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small. From the NAIA to the NCAA, we share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta, along with my co-host, Mike Washington. Charles Bishop is the C. Charles. I have him yarning in the show because I have wore him out. He has late hours as I have him strictly on his dissertation work. And I promise you, it will end, Charles. It will end. Just keep the light on. Keep working.
Keep chopping wood. I know.
Keep chopping wood. There it is. Yeah. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal out of KCOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, multi-Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. With that being said, before we get into some news, and we'll push that out a little bit, but I would be remiss that I didn't ask you your thoughts. 699, right there, we push through and find a way to get it done Sunday as we unveil our first week poll rankings, if you would, of the regular season on Sunday in 2025. How are you feeling to be on the cusp of that at 699?
I mean, it's historic. I mean, you take a look at it, and I literally was just laughing, just thinking back to kind of when I started on the show and just watching individuals as they've grown through the years. I literally looked over my shoulder, and I have a colleague, a guy I grew up with who always watches the show, but his son just had a fumble recovery out there for South Florida. So, and when I started the show, he was in 8th grade. So it's just, you just...
that's real talk.
Just kind of you sit back and laugh about it, But I mean, that's historic, and I mean, I think we definitely have put an imprint on the culture of HBCU athletics. So I'm proud to be a part of that.
Yeah, I'm extremely proud of myself, and I like the way you put that. That we've done the work that allowed us to have a footprint, and we hope folks recognize it as a significant footprint. In terms of what that looks like. Obviously, we have recognition as a top-ranked HBCU podcast. I think that's a moment that was significant of having people outside of what we do recognize that. Obviously, one of the most important frameworks is the fans that you said that follow us religiously. When we're out and about, they always ask how we're doing. Those that are not quite sure, they say, "You Dr. Cavil?" And it's always fascinating, and they can't wait to tell you, "I watch your show, I support your show, I like it."
I walk with a celebrity, yes, I do.
He's trying to put it all on me. Hey, you too, my friend. But good stuff. And I do want to acknowledge all those that play the back row in terms of this. Chris, in terms of what he does in the production side, Cicely and what she does in terms of making sure a script is available. People don't realize how much, in some ways, it takes to put this together. And for us moving around, we created a family because it helps support us, but they do a wonderful job. When we talk about Raymond Holly in terms of what he does with the social media footprint. And those students over the years that have been a part of this to help lift and elevate their career outside of this, but a lot of them started here to help us in various ways during their period. And they always check in and give us accolades. So I wanted to name a couple of those for folks in terms of what they do, because we wouldn't be at 699 and on the threshold of 700 wasn't for them. Folks that come in here and provide us with the framework, if you would, and share the space. I think that's huge. Now we even morphed into any report. We give folks the opportunity to do that. Sometimes we do a Friday report. We mixed in thinking about doing a Monday HBCU Division II report, and oftentimes we do that on Thursday more specifically. But the ability to navigate the space and give folks an hour worth of HBCU thought process, I think, is really good. So appreciate you bringing that to the forefront. Now back to it. Put some meat on the bone. What's on your mind in terms of HBCU news of the day?
Yeah, well, let's take a look at this story from HBCUGameday.com. Delaware State executing a $125 million game plan. When we take a look at it, Delaware State is mapping out an ambitious $125 million transformation of its athletic program. The effort is designed to elevate the institution into the upper echelon of HBCUs. The plan, first reported by Katie Tabling in the Delaware Business Times on August 20th, underscores a sweeping vision by Delaware State President Tony Allen and Athletic Director Tony Tucker. Over the past 9 months, Allen has quietly outlined a strategy to match rising enrollment and institutional growth with a parallel surge in athletic prominence. So we see some of the things, Delaware State is on the cusp of big hire with regards to Deshaun Jackson. Better strike while the iron is hot.
That's smart, how you parallel that. And I think a lot of that was being done before they hired Jackson. But I think with the mindset they had and how to strike and really get further momentum is you make a hire like Deshaun Jackson. So it's going to be fascinating. And with all those that had different questions about what it is, having a chance to speak with him at the media day, having a chance to see what he did in terms of the first week, you can tell that he's all in now. Wherever you may have thought he may have been, and I'll throw in Michael Vick in terms of that, you can tell that they've quickly moved into that coaching mode in regards to, moving beyond themselves. Not that they ever had that, but fitting right in a lot of ways. So credit to them in terms of what that looks like. I want to take it off of it for a minute. Did you get a chance to see any of it, of the banter directly? If not, I'm sure you've seen most social media platforms. I don't think we've seen this kind of talk about the Labor Day Classic in a while. I would say it certainly hadn't had this flavor since 2010, right after Prairie View won the championship and ultimately Texas Southern won it in 2010. But leading into that game, KJ Black coming back, and a lot of folks had momentum, biggest talk. But at that point, you really didn't have social media like what we think today, particularly Twitter and all those at this level. And I think that's elevated to a whole different level with the interest in this game. So I'm fascinated. But the banter, as I would like to say it, but I don't know, it might have crossed a little more than that over the last 2 weeks between what Chris Dishman said on an interview and then what Dishman followed up and said at the Labor Day Classic Media Day on Monday, and then what Coach Jackson said on Wednesday, followed up what Dishman also said and did and looked doing that. What are your thoughts in terms of where that is, how much is too far, how much is good in terms of excitement, selling extra tickets, or putting some focus on a game that you really haven't seen in a while, particularly at the start of the year, other than just the natural interest of fans coming into a season?
It's good. It's good for Texas Southern. It's good for Prairie View. my students are talking about the game, and that is something that I love. To have that banter going back and forth with another student population, to have some pride within your own athletic team. That means a lot to me. That's something that I preach constantly within my class with regards to, it's got to matter. It's got to have some value to you. So it's showing that this banter going back and forth, it has value to the student bodies, and I love it.
I'm going to go in my news report on this side before I turn it back to you and ask, what else is on your mind. Fascinating in a lot of ways. In game day, Stephen Gaither did some updates, and we kind of touched on it. But I'm fascinated with this North Carolina A&T and Tennessee State matchup. Obviously, you would have a lot of focus on Tennessee State after winning a share of the championship last year, getting up to 8 wins on the season. North Carolina A&T, not so much in terms of how they struggled on winless since they joined the Colonial Athletic Association, now called the Coastal Athletic Association, CAA. But now you have 2 new coaches in both these programs. So fans naturally are interested in the first game of the year, but for independents that do not necessarily get to play a full slate of HBCUs in terms of a conference framework. Both of them had played their share in terms of non-conference games against some HBCUs. But this is a first time where we have 2 independent programs playing each other in a matchup. Obviously, we would refer to Hampton and A&T as independents, but they play as a conference foe. These are not conference foes. So it's the first time you've seen this at the FCS level, so it's unique from that perspective. You throw in, rabid fan bases, at least in terms of classics, certainly about that. Recently, championship programs, when you look at least the last 10 years, coming to the table, and they're doing it with 2 different coaching staffs and 2 different styles. Both coaches have been in HBCU football. One of the coaches was on a staff, and in some way people kind of look as if he's coming home in terms of what he recently being the head coach out of the SIAC in terms of Fort Valley State. And then you have the other coach on the other side. That's Sean Gibbs, obviously, in terms of what that looks like. But then you go to the coach on the other side in terms of having multiple stints at HBCUs. First, Alabama State, his alma mater, when he, in some ways, kind of came home. One of the first of the NFL players coming to do that. It was unique then because he was coming home. People didn't necessarily. And then he had a stint, obviously, at Virginia State. And then went up to coach at the professional level in terms of XFL, bringing a championship there. So fascinating when you talk about Reggie Barlow, a veteran coach in many ways. How do you kind of see this game from that perspective? We talked about it on the field too, Steve, but now taking it off the field and maybe taking a little light in terms of coaches. I want to kind of get your perspective, at least the way I've shaped it. I'm not sure. And shout out again to Stephen Gaither in terms of putting it out front and center.
Well, I think the big thing for me, especially in regards to Tennessee State having sort of a geographic rival to come into Nashville, that is the first thing that kind of jumped out for me with regards to A&T taking on Tennessee State, because I think, how many times does Tennessee State get an HBCU coming to Nashville as opposed to them coming down to Memphis or whatever the case might be? Now they have this other game that they'll have with Alabama A&M, but I think it rekindles, something, in regards to a rivalry that I would love to see happen in regards to, you got a team that's relatively within your geographic footprint that you're fighting with. So I think this is a great thing for Tennessee State, for A&T to sort of get this kicked off, hopefully get a series up and going and whatnot. And then, of course, we know Tennessee State will have a series up and going, Alabama A&M. So, for lack of better words, it kind of brings them back to the fore, if you will, where we can talk about them a little bit more.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And the last time I remember these 2 teams playing each other was in the playoffs. That's when the last time we had so many teams in the playoffs. I think we had 2, FAMU, A&T, Tennessee State at that time. So you had, and A&T traveled to Tennessee State. Tennessee State was ranked at the top. They did have the quarterback injury going into that. I think Leon may have been the quarterback at the time. I know he's being honored, at this game. So regardless if he wasn't, he deserves to be shouted out in terms of him being recognized fully in terms of what he did. I think that kind of goes back to that Coach Cole era. They were upset, if you would, and part of that in terms of they would like to let you know it's because of where they were with the quarterback play, even though they ended up winning their last game in terms of the backup quarterback to win that OVC championship. But that was a classic matchup. That's when both teams were playing really good football.
Yeah.
So that kind of takes me back. So that's another way to kind of get excited and talk about that. That being said, let's take our first break, come back on the other side. We're going to shift a little bit and get into the Division II love. We'll talk about some key matchups over the last 3 segments. We'll go on a classic tour, if you would, in terms of that. And many of these will be SIAC, CIAA matchups. You know, on the MEAC SWAC side, you know, we get kind of lathered up about those matchups. It helps when you have a MEAC SWAC challenge, obviously, to kind of continue to do that, particularly at the end of the year with the celebration mode. So one of the things I'd like to think about as we get into it, what does it look like for SIAC, CIAA type of championship game in terms of if that could come to fruition? And furthermore, you know, how the fans feel about it. I've kind of studied this for a while, and they tend to look at it a little differently. But can more of these matchups change that? They focus for us in a lot of ways playoffs. Obviously, they didn't have the big game. You know, they did have many years ago the Pioneer Bowl, but it slowed down and took a hiatus even before the Heritage Bowl. And they certainly haven't had anything come up as you have coming up on the 10th anniversary of the Cricket Celebration Bowl at the end of the year. So fascinating to kind of get your thoughts on that. Certainly don't have the 20 years of the Cricket MEAC SWAC Challenge kickoff now, as they call it. So marinate as we go through these games, talking about that a little bit, if you would, Charles. But again, let's take a first break, flip it, turn it on the other side, and come back and get right into some of these matchups.
Get ready for the inaugural Unity Classic, Saturday, September 13th at Nathaniel Glover Community Field and Stadium. It's a clash of the Virginia Union Panthers of the CIAA and the Edward Waters Tigers of the SIAC. Plus, an HBCU band battle between the Edward Waters Triple Threat Marching Band and the Virginia Union Ambassadors of Sound. The inaugural Unity Classic goes down in fall.
This is Brian Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Lab. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Lab, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
History? Yeah, we built that. Pride? We fuel that. And on August 30th, we run that. 2 powerhouse HBCUs, Howard Bison, FAMU Rattlers, one legendary showdown under the Miami lights at Hard Rock Stadium. The energy unmatched. The culture undeniable. The vibes straight HBCU. 2025 Invesco QQQ Orange Blossom Classic. Get your tickets and book your hotel now at orangeblossomclassic.com. Saturday, August 30th at 4 p.m. in Miami Gardens.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavil of Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app. As we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports.
Compress the analytic data with your hip-hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. I'm here with Professor Bishop. Before we get into this talk, you have some score updates. You know, we forget that everything doesn't necessarily on Saturday. A lot of it, as you know now, starts on Thursday. You might even get a game or two on Friday. Certainly, you have some updates that we should think about with games today?
Yeah, a couple of early matchups. Virginia State and Barton getting it on. Virginia State on top of Barton early, 14-0 in that football game. In fact, Virginia State had just scored, so they've just gone up 14-0 on Brandon Rose run up the middle for a 6-yard touchdown. So Virginia State on top of Barton, 14-0, and another contest tonight. Livingstone and Charleston are playing, and Charleston on top of Livingstone 7-0 thus far with 6 minutes to go in the first quarter. And Charleston with a field goal attempt. They're now up 10-0.
Good stuff. Good updates and way to do it. Producer, let's get into it and bring up that first matchup. This is an intriguing matchup, at least in terms of rankings on multiple ways. We've had a couple of folks, as we did our countdown, that disagreed in terms of one of the teams in terms of this matchup, if we can get into it, which when you look at the updates, and I think I have my numbers around on this data, but I'll do it from this perspective. These two teams are both ranked in the top 25 in terms of Division II poll. You have a number 9 Virginia Union, and a number 23 Miles Golden Bears in terms of the matchup between the two teams. This game is in the Black College Football Hall of Fame Classic up there in Ohio, if you would. CIAA against SIAC. Let me set this up a little more. Contractually, fascinating that this matchup moving forward will feature the CIAA previous year's champion versus the previous year's champion of the SIAC. So now you realize, going back quickly in the history, Virginia Union won the championship in the CIAA. Miles won it in terms of the SIAC. And so that's fascinating from that perspective. I have it in terms of preseason, as you see here, is a 1 versus 5 matchup when you talk about it from an HBCU perspective. So curious in terms of these matchups when you talk about this. Again, both are D2 experts, AD and Stephen, that's Stephen A. Gaither, as well as AD in terms of what he thinks. They said, both of them, AD Drew, that is, obviously, both of them said that Miles shouldn't be ranked that high. They talking about they lost a lot.
Yeah.
A new coach, I would give them that for sure. But kind of fascinating about it. Both teams went into the playoffs last year, won a game in the playoffs. Virginia Union won 2. Both of them lost to Valdosta State, whose head coach now, oddly enough, or maybe I shouldn't say oddly, but different enough, is down and over at Prairie View A&M University. We kind of talked about in the first segment, dusting it up with Coach Dishman. When you think about Coach Jackson representing Prairie View, Dishman representing Texas Southern. But give me some thoughts in terms of this matchup. Is there any way this game will be close? It's a Sunday game, so we get to spin off a little bit. Maybe talk about on Sunday as we unveil the major division, but that'll probably be most of the talk. But you get some extra football. This will be broadcast, NFL Network. So tell me a little bit of where you're going in terms of the Virginia Union Panthers versus the Miles Golden Bears.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of intrigue with regards to Miles and what Chris Good is bringing to the forward with this Miles Golden Bears team. You're talking about a team that over the past couple seasons, 17-6, especially what Sam Shade was able to do, but a lot of new pieces over there with the Miles Golden Bears. So a lot of unknowns. So there's going to be a lot of question marks with regards to what they have coming into this game. But what they do have is a running back by the name of Javante Leatherwood. And you're talking about an individual who's rushed for over 400 yards last season with 11 touchdowns. Well, he becomes the bell cow running back, if you will, for the Miles Golden Bears. But that being said, going up against a tough Virginia Union team with a running back like Trevon Tinsley, I just think Virginia Union, what they've been able to do over the past few seasons, I think 20-6 over the past 2 years, 20-6 over the past 2 years, and they bring back quite a bit. So I think the CIAA continues to extend out That wish
Don't
that
say
they
it.
had over there.
Don't say it. We had the commissioner on. You saying he's not gonna be happy with the end of this matchup. Good thing is he has 4 more.
Yeah.
4 more. And 3 of them essentially this weekend. And maybe it's 4. No, 3 of them this weekend. With that being said, let's get into the next matchup, which is also a CIAA versus SIAC matchup. This one features the Shaw Bears versus the Albany State Golden Rams. That's Shaw Bears of the CIAA and the Albany State Golden Rams of the SIAC. So 9 versus 12 matchup. So that's that second tier teams. Can one of these teams win and set the season in the right direction? Obviously, Shaw shocked a lot of folks what they did last year. Albany State probably pushed further than many people think or thought. Now it's interesting because most of these teams are thought of differently this year. They're certainly trying to set up their season. And so I'm fascinating when you get in this talk. Coach Gray over there obviously has a lot of fans that are having high expectation of what they want to see from the Golden Rams. Doesn't have to worry about maybe the Miles Golden Bears, but he does have another Georgia team, Clark Atlanta, that some people think that they might have to look at too. But with all that said, Shaw's Bears have to go through a CIAA that people believe is stacked now. And remember, we have a different format in both of these conferences. The last couple of years, it used to be in divisions where the top 2 division teams have won, and sometimes you would have maybe one division that was stronger than the other. But now it's the top 2 spots. So you can't get away with just playing well in your division. Now you got to find a way to muscle through and find a way in that first or second spot to play for a championship in both of these conferences. With that being said, what do you think about this intra-conference between the CIAA and SIAC matchup number 2 in the opening weekend, what they call at the Division II level, week 0?
Yeah, very intriguing matchup. And if you remember last year, Albany State was winning in this football game, 26-16, and Shaw chased them down, outscored them 27-14 over the last quarter. Coming up with a huge win with about 8 seconds left to go in that 43-40 win for Shaw. I'm looking for Albany State to get some payback in this one, especially when you take a look at the toys they got at their disposal. Preseason SIAC Offensive Player of the Year in Isaiah Knowles. He threw for 262 yards in that game last season. He's got wideouts, Jamil Williams, Jerry and Jackson, got a running back, Tion Weiss. I think Albany State, they get the W in this one.
Good stuff. Let's go to our final CIAA versus SIAC matchup in week 0. There's 3 of them, so that means we have 2 coming down the stretch. But this weekend, we got our 3rd one. This one, we get the battle between our D2 experts. Let's put it that way. Fighting Gaithers and the Fighting Drews. I don't necessarily like us to say that, but we're teasing out a little bit. This is a top 7 matchup. We got a number 4 on one side, and then you go into Tuskegee, number 16. Most folks thought they were too low, so they get a chance to show a little bit. This is what many would say their host classic as the Red Tail Classic, which will also be on Sunday. This one will be on ESPN, ESPNU. We have a number 4 Winston-Salem State Rams versus number 16 Tuskegee Golden Tigers. Stephen Gaither has done everything he did in his mindset to say that this is a make it or break it season. So
I saw that
in this matchup. You talking about putting the pressure on your own team, boy. They do have expectations at the Division II level. We talk about those big brands at the major division level, but as I broke it down earlier, also doing coming into this when I did a historical matchup when that was the talk. And one thing I did different than a lot of others is I focused and make sure that Division II had a chance to talk about what that looked like. Well, Winston-Salem State were in a lot of those categories. When you looked at it specifically at the Division II, obviously a lot of those categories also had the Tuskegee Golden Tigers. So even from a brand matchup, if you would, this is a good. When we talked about A&T and Tennessee State, that's North Carolina A&T, about that going back to the playoffs. For those that want to go back in the Wayback Machine, this was played as a bowl championship game when there was the Pioneer Bowl. Like to take you back a little bit. So my understanding is really basically last time these teams matched up in a lot of ways, but without further ado, I'm interested to see what Professor Bishop has to say about the Rams versus the Golden Tigers.
Yeah, this is a very intriguing matchup when you take a look at Winston-Salem State coming off of a 7-3 season. They really kind of got themselves back into some talking points to where Stephen Gaither will be like, you know what, this is make or break. So I'm very curious to see what Winston-Salem brings to this ball game. You take a look at Tuskegee. They fell back. They fell back to the pack a little bit last year, 5-6, but they do have 7, if I'm not mistaken, 7 preseason SIAC selections. Got a lot of talent on that football team. You can't, they kind of like Grambling to me. They can't stay down very long, but in this one, I got to go with the Fighting Gaithers. I go with Winston-Salem State to get the W in this one.
So, how many CIAA wins do you have in these 3 matchups? Make sure you put it all out there.
Yeah, I got 1. I got 2, and then I got 2-1. I'm 2-1 on my CIAA versus SIAC because I got Albany State to get the win over Shaw.
Okay, 2-1 in the first weekend. At least they don't get the goose egg. We'll see. And when I say that, obviously SIAC, but coming out of the ledger, you said after this first weekend, CIAA is still going to be able to hold their chest out a little bit in terms of what they did to the SIAC last year. At least it's a little closer after the first opening weekend based on your analysis. We'll see if that holds true. Let's take our second break. We'll come back on the other side and talk a little bit about some conference games out of the SIAC. We have 2 conference matchups this first weekend, at least between SIAC members. We'll talk about those 2 matchups in the next segment. We'll be right back after this second break.
Now, you can live in Texas and not have a good red meat blend. Texas Cowboy Dust is designed for steak and other red meats. It's out to be my most popular spice blend, made with onions, peppers, ground mushrooms, pink salt, and other spices. Texas Cowboy Dust also goes great with chicken, pork, vegetables, and adds a restaurant quality sheen to gravies and sauces.
It's like a loop machine. Going around town, trying to get down.
Vanilla smoked sea salt seasoning is for seafood. The tarragon and fennel bring out the natural sweetness in seafood. I also use it in rice dishes, on yams, asparagus, blueberry pancakes, and believe it or not, chocolate chip cookies. Vanilla smoked sea salt adds a salty and savory component to sweet dishes that create a symphony for the tongue.
Get ready for the inaugural Unity Classic, Saturday, September 13th at Nathaniel Glover Community Field and Stadium. It's a clash of the Virginia Union Panthers of the CIAA and the Edward Waters Tigers of the SIAC. Plus, an HBCU band battle between the Edward Waters Triple Threat Marching Band and the Virginia Union Ambassadors of Sound. The inaugural Unity Classic goes down in Duval.
History? Yeah, we built that. Pride? We fuel that. And on August 30th, we run that. 2 powerhouse HBCUs, Howard Bison, FAMU Rattlers, one legendary showdown under the Miami lights at Hard Rock Stadium. The energy unmatched. The culture undeniable. The vibes straight HBCU. 2025 Invesco QQQ Orange Blossom Classic. Get your tickets and book your hotel now at orangeblossomclassic.com. Saturday, August 30th at 4 p.m. in Miami Gardens.
Football fans, HBCU football.
Greetings, Santos. My name is Roland Austin, and I'm one of the directors at the 1876 Athletic Foundation. The 1876 Athletic Foundation was formed to promote the success of all 343 student athletes. Our overall goal is to fund scholarships for all of our student athletes. We ask that you help us in achieving this goal by donating to the 1876 Athletic Foundation via the QR code below or 1876.foundation. Your generous donation will help us continue to assist the needs of all of our Panther athletes. Thanks, and go Panthers.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Charles Bishop. Let's get into these two SIAC matchups. Let's jump right into the first one. This one is not probably exciting. As you see here, I ranked the top 21 Division II programs. There's like right at 27, 28 between the NAIA programs and Division II. Have an announcement with another team bringing back their program. So that's why I hedged a little bit on the total number. But this is a rivalry in a lot of ways when you talk about border between states. So you got the Kentucky State Thoroughbreds and the Central State Marauders. Both teams are trying to find a way to get back up into the conference race. Some coaching changes along the way in terms of what that looks like. But somebody is going to find themselves to get a big win to kick off the season, at least get some momentum of feeling good about themselves. So I do like that part of this. And there's also a way where if you can push this, it kind of reminds you in terms of the Labor Day Classic, which we'll talk about in the last segment, taking a deeper dive in that since it's coming up. In terms of kicking off a conference game at the first of the year between what many people see as two natural rivals, basically foes in terms of the state of Texas. This one has a borderline in terms of states to be the difference. But tell me a little bit about the uniqueness of this matchup with teams that struggle, coaches changing from that perspective. What do you look at this matchup and why do you see it as an important matchup in terms of one team being able to get the first win of the season?
Yeah, you're reestablishing a culture. I mean, when you take a look at Kentucky State kind of got back off the mat a little bit last year. They won 5 games, went 5-6, but it was their best season since 2021. So I think that was huge for them in terms of taking the next step. Tony Carter's still trying to get the Central State team up and going 1-9. So they're still trying to reestablish, a winning identity. So I think this game is pivotal for both teams in terms of continuing to build a culture where winning is the expectation.
Good stuff. And when you think about this matchup, you're talking about also from a division perspective, which gets us into the next one. When you talk about how important this becomes matchups. This one, you do have two teams, when you look at the total top 21 rank, they are in the bottom of that. And this is a matchup that features another state borderline matchup. This is coming out of the other division of the SIAC. One of them that makes this unique is Edward Waters. The coaching change that happened literally right after media day, which is a little different than what we normally see when you have a new coach coming to the program. Not that you don't see a new coach, but certainly not a day after media day and a couple of weeks before the season. But however, with that being said, we have a number 18 in terms of Edward Water Tigers versus number 17 Savannah State Tigers. So this is the battle not only between state lines in terms of Florida and Georgia. Not only is it public versus private, it's also the battle of the Tigers. Somebody gets to say they're the real Tigers, if you will.
That's true.
When you think about it from that perspective. Tell me your thoughts in terms of this matchup, especially when you think about you got Coach Jenkins and what he was able to do at Bethune-Cookman. Couldn't quite get the same level of success at Alabama State. He wasn't quite there that long to do it. But he's had some highlights when you think about what he was able to get done with the Bethune-Cookman. Pretty much the last time the Wildcats were really still having a level of fight, which we kind of seen change during the period of COVID and afterwards. They believe they're getting it right now. We'll see what that looks like, but that's a discussion for another day. Right now, let's get into the battle of the Tigers. What are your thoughts in terms of this matchup between Edward Waters and Savannah State?
Intriguing part about this, and you mentioned it, Brian Jenkins. You talk about an individual who had a lot of success back in the MEAC with Bethune-Cookman, had some success with Alabama State, but an individual who along the way has Black College National Championship on the ledger. And then Eric Dooley, is over there as well. So you talk about a couple of coaches who have had quite a bit of success at the SWAC level. But, coming in when they did, how can they improve on a culture that went 3-7 last season? They got some toys. They got a running back by the name of Jontarius Thomas, who's a heck of a running back. You also got Mekhi Levitt for Edward Waters. So be very interested to see what Brian Jenkins can do with those toys. And on the flip side of that, Savannah State, they get it done on the defensive side of the ball. You're talking about a couple of big HBCU box row guys that are on defensive line in regards to Xavier Eskian, as well as Gary Davis, linebackers for Savannah State. So Savannah State 5-5 last year. We'll see if they can improve, get over the hump, get over that 500 mark this season. Getting a win over, a close foe would be a huge, feather in their cap to get the season up and going.
Good stuff. Let me ask you this. Who you going to lean towards? Who you got in this match?
I'm in this one. I'm going to go with Savannah State. A lot of pieces a little bit too new for me with regards to a coaching change for Savannah State. I'm sorry, for Edward Waters. So I'm going to go with Savannah State in this one.
Interesting. I thought you might lean the other way, but you certainly
wanted to. I got to be rational about it. Yeah.
Kentucky State, Central State. Where you leaning?
I think Kentucky State is the program that's a little further ahead right now. So I got to go with Kentucky State in that one.
You got any updates on scores before we go to this next break?
Yeah, I mean, Virginia State getting it done. They're up 21-0 in this game. You take a look at some of the early individual stats in this game. Brandon Rose already for Virginia State, 12 rushes, 58 yards. He's popping it for 4.8 yards per carry. We take a look at Livingstone and Charleston. Charleston up 14-3. That game has now moved into the second quarter.
Intriguing. Good updates, great report. Let's take our last break. We'll come back on the other side. We'll get back in terms of the major division. We'll look at SWAC matchups. We'll start it off a little bit about Southern and Valley. Obviously, that doesn't count in the SWAC standings, but it has its own reasons why people kind of will, if not watch it in terms of in-depth, they certainly will have their eye on it. And the next one is what looks like a showcase here in the Lone Star State, and we'll be right in the mix, be at that game to give you some updates of what that looks like Sunday morning. But I certainly want to go into what the Charles
History? Yeah, we built that. Pride? We fuel that. And on August 30th, we run that. Two powerhouse HBCUs, Howard Bison, FAMU Rattlers, one legendary showdown under the Miami lights at Hard Rock Stadium. The energy unmatched. The culture undeniable. The vibes straight HBCU. 2025 Invesco QQQ Orange Blossom Classic. Get your tickets and book your hotel now at orangeblossomclassic.com. Saturday, August 30th at 4 p.m. in Miami Gardens.
Greetings, Santos. My name is Roland Austin, and I'm one of the directors at the 1876 Athletic Foundation. The 1876 Athletic Foundation was formed to promote the success of all 343 student athletes. Our overall goal is to fund scholarships for all of our student athletes. We ask that you help us in achieving this goal by donating to the 1876 Athletic Foundation via the QR code below or 1876.foundation. Your generous donation will help us continue to assist the needs of all of our Panther athletes. Thanks, and go Panthers.
Compress the analytic data with your hip-hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a lot, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Charles, let's get back into it and go back into the SWAC. We got to give some updates of what this looked like in terms of this SWAC matchup, in terms of Southern Jaguars and Mississippi Valley State Delta Devils. When we look at that, a couple of slides further down, and you'll get back in terms of that Southern Jaguars and Mississippi Valley State. Southern Jaguars, I have them as 1-0, but that's a little revisionist history. They're actually 0-1 with that loss in the cricket MEAC SWAC Challenge kickoff. You know, that's, as you talk about, Jackson State Tigers were there to kind of rib Southern. That's a little rib there by me talking about their 1-0 with all the noise. But anyway, they are 0-1. Number 4, still ranked because we hadn't changed the rankings. and they're versus a number 20 team. Second to the last ranked team, if you would, is the Mississippi Valley State Delta Devils. You always talk about Delta Devils. Certainly play tough. They do that, and we've seen some improve. They pulled off some big wins. A couple of years ago, they kept Prairie View out of the playoffs in terms of a last season win at home against Prairie View and the Panthers. And that was fascinating when you look at it. Last year, obviously, they got the win and ended a win streak for Florida A&M in terms of it shocked the world in a lot of ways as well. Now they have a new coach. Certainly at the media day, size it up if you look at it in terms of saying that this is different. We've kind of heard that before, but some people may believe it a little differently. Different AD coming in there, talking a little bit about in terms of their expectation, why they say it's different now in terms of what that looks like. Well, they certainly get a chance to prove it. One thing I'll say before I let you jump in here further and really give some frameworks to this is the fact that I would think we know what Valley is going to do. We heard that they were going to run the ball, but after watching Southern's defense struggle a lot against the run defense, you would imagine that Delta Devils are going to focus on it. Now, the question of the day is, obviously, we know Delta Devils, while they may be improved, we don't think they're going to be the Central Eagles, North Carolina Central Eagles.
That part, yeah.
But they may not have to be,
right?
Is the question. Mm-hmm. So, what are you saying about this matchup?
I think when you take a look at Southern, I think the way they were dominated up front, that was a bit surprising. I think I knew North Carolina Central had a very good offensive line, but you never had the sense that at any point in that game that Southern could get a stop, especially with regards to stopping North Carolina Central on the ground. And then Walker Harris, he was very efficient in that game. He took what basically Southern gave him and kept himself out of trouble. Flip side of that is, and this goes back to SWAC Media Day in terms of talking to Coach Buckley, ridiculously confident. In fact, when I talked to him, it's like, Coach, when we take a look at the first couple of games, Southern, Tarleton State, and he said, yeah, we'll be 2-0. I said, oh, wait a second, Coach. Hey, calm down. but you're very curious as to if he is really injecting that juice into the program with regards to Mississippi Valley. I do know first game of the season up there in Interbeam, the Delta's going to turn out, especially with a team like Southern, quote unquote, a blue blood team coming in to Rice-Titan Stadium. So it's going to be a very lively atmosphere. I'm really looking forward to. I'm keeping my eye on that game to see what happens. But there's a lot of newness around the Valley program. First game of the season, I have to give the edge to Southern because I think you do make a lot of improvements, and a lot of coaches around the league will talk about game 1 to game 2 is where you get an opportunity to take a look and see what you did wrong on film, get an opportunity to correct it in game 2. So in that regards, with Southern playing in week 0, I look to see a host of positive momentum going into this game 2. A lot of changes from schematically, even from what they did in game 1. So I do expect them to get the W in this one.
Oh boy, you said a lot, and you made it intriguing in terms of seriously, what's the look in this? Also, with regard to setting this match up in so many different ways, but I am intrigued about this in terms of what this looks like. One of those questions I told you earlier, or last week, we talked about what does a good loss look like, and we talked a lot about after this show and a little bit on Sunday about concerns. So I guess I'm gonna ask you this question from this perspective, since there's some expectation that Southern is going to find a way to right the ship. The Valley is not there quite yet. But with that being out there a little bit, I have to ask the question: what does a good win look like for Southern Jaguars if they're able to win this game?
A good win, I think, is a double-digit win, whether you're talking about 10 points or 14 points, but a good win. And I think it's a different-looking football team with Jalen Woods at the helm. I think not having him quarterback last week, I think it hampered them. I don't think, quite honestly, they were very good in terms of throwing the football, but we did see, they have one heck of a running game. So, you look for Jalen Woods to kind of balance things out this week for the Southern offense. And some of it, once I had a day or two to digest it, I was like, it's not a good loss, but I have to keep in mind that the probable starter did not play in that game. So in that regards, they get a mulligan.
That's a fair point. We'll see how they change around things. Let's go to the next slide and talk about the Labor Day Classic right here in Houston, in our backyard. Fascinating to see. We've seen a lot of talk, as I said, interest in this matchup off the field. Prairie View has dominated this game over the last couple of years. In fact, they won the last 4 matchups when it's been in Houston. And before that, they'd won 4 or 5 straight. Texas Southern has put in a win in between that, and then before that, Prairie View had won several games in a row. But the overall, Texas Southern still has that because of the lean years from Prairie View, just from a historical perspective. This is a weird game for me, just some anecdotal type notes. The new coach has won this game over the last 5 or 6 new coaches, 5 of the last 6 coaches. The only one that couldn't get it done was Texas Southern's last coach in terms of not being able to get that win. But this one righted the ship last year, came back and got a win. Now you got a new coach at Prairie View. Can he continue that intriguing, if you would, framework where a new coach finds a way to get the win in this matchup? But more importantly, a lot of interest here. The memes are up. Find a way if we can put one of those up. Talks about smile if you have your own stadium. This is just hilarious to me. I've seen these memes. These young folks, boy, they understand AI and they not afraid to use it. And so this is a little different. So yeah, I wanted to show you that a little bit and put that up there. We can go back to the ranking with the matchup between Prairie View A&M and Texas Southern. But more importantly, all that other stuff is great, the talks and stuff, but both of these teams have an interest of being in the championship race at the end of the season. Obviously, what they've seen from Southern last week, they got to believe that they rightfully, if they can get this win and play to the level of their expectation, they should be in the race. They probably thought that going in, but even more so, other than maybe Alcorn, you can have the surprise from Grambling, Pine Bluff. People don't think they're there yet. They got a year away, but obviously they got a chance to play as well. But when you put all that together, the momentum of who able to get this win is so significant to me in terms of not just the first game of the year, but a conference game, particularly when you look at Prairie View that plays a front-loaded conference. You could have as early as October of them basically know that literally they have wrapped everything up, or certainly in a long way away with that. And Texas Southern has a chance to make some major statements. Now, this will be 2 in a row. Talking about getting back the old way of stuff they can get it done. It certainly solidifies Dishman of saying, no, this is my program and we're building something special. Or does Jackson get the momentum that he would think he likes to bring in from what he was able to do at Valdosta State at the Division II level, rekindle the excitement of Prairie View to say that not only are they going to be in the Western Division race, but they plan to be one of the top programs in the SWAC. Setting it up all like that. We're here at Shell Stadium in Houston, Texas. Tickets are going really well.
They are.
Prairie plans to be deep in terms of what that matchup is. Texas Southern is certainly going to be loud at their home stadium. Where are you going with this matchup, Charles?
I think you said something so key there in terms of both teams playing to the level of their expectations. And over the years, how often have we seen, whether you're talking about Prairie View or you're talking about Texas Southern, they've shot themselves in the foot at inopportune times. And I think that's one of the things that I've kind of taken a look at going into this game in terms of who is the team that can play a disciplined brand of football, something that I've heard both coaches really talk about. That has been one thing that Chris Dishman has preached literally from the day he stepped on Texas Southern's campus in terms of getting this team towards a more disciplined brand of football. We saw times during the course of the year last year where just inopportune times where they turned the football over. We've seen Prairie View do that as well, but at the same time, they've also stepped up in big games. When I go back to that Florida A&M game last season, Florida A&M coming to Prairie View and Prairie View knocking them out. But a whole new cast of characters that I don't think a lot of people are familiar with regards to this Prairie View team, especially who's going to be under center. There's a lot of talk in terms of who could get the call. So I think it'll be a very interesting matchup. Prairie View is the it team. A lot of people are talking about them. They're talking about a lot of the juice that Tremaine Jackson has infused back into this program. And I think they're going to ride their wave of momentum in this one and get the W.
Good stuff, good stuff. I want to take it off of the HBCU framework for a little while before we come to close. I'd be remiss. There's hot news out there, and I know you as an incredible Cowboys fan. I have to ask you. Sorry, Charles, you know I had to do it. Packers aggressive. First it was Cowboys, Michael Parsons, but they've even changed the headline. Now all the shine is on the Packers. Packers aggressive in trade with Cowboys for Michael Parsons. Part of that is the fact that not only trade him, but part of the trade is the Packers breaking the bank in terms of getting Michael Parsons as they signed a former Cowboy to a 4-year, $188 million contract. It's the largest outside of a quarterback. Signing bonus is off the charts in terms of what he was able to get. But how are you feeling about this? We have our fraternity text chatter, and it was going off the chain. Another one of our brothers here, co-host of the show, is Mike, and I'm understanding now that part of the reason he joined the show that he was just so flabbergasted that he couldn't control himself and couldn't join the show. So, Mike, you can't let the trades of the Cowboys get you going. Shout out to Vernell Trigg, another one of big Cowboys fan, good frat brother of mine, good friend out of Dallas area right there. He couldn't believe it, couldn't hold back his concern about how this went down. And then you have like Alan Williams, best friend, along with Mike Washington, I had both of them close to me. Mike like a big brother, Alan like my cousin in terms of what that looks like. First cousin, if you would. In terms of how we landed at Prairie View in the summer school ECI programs and have done it all together in terms of graduating Prairie View mechanical engineers, to give him a shout out. He's a Detroit fan. So obviously he goes to the Green Bay Packers, but he was so concerned about the Cowboys fan that he had to dust it up before he realized that he was a division matchup. Same way with Rick Johnson. He's up there in the Norris Blues conferences like to play in terms, that's a hockey term, but you know what they say in football. But he's a Chicago Bears fan. Mm-hmm. That's fascinating. So he was talking a little noise about the Cowboys fan, and then he realized he went to Green Bay, and he's like, oh, and Bears can't win. With all that mixed up, then shout out to some of the other brothers on here digging it up, getting it in there. As you had Joe Clay doing his thought process in terms of what it looks like. So your chapter brother over there in terms of mixing it up a little bit. I got to give him some love in terms of he jumped in here. He's a Washington Commanders fan. So I thought that was funny in terms of how he was cracking up and says he appreciates Jerry Jones, Mario Thomas, to shout him out in terms of the love. He said his quarterback now gets a break and gets to not feel so worried about who's going to be chasing from the backside. So everybody is entertained about this. So I would be remiss because Charles has been on the show, so he hadn't had the chance to really give his response. So we're going to let you do it publicly.
Sure. Well, obviously, I'm extremely numb to Jerry Jones being a GM. So I just, let me get that out there early. I'm numb to his antics. But let me take my emotional cowboy hat off and put my rational hat on for a second. Obviously, it's a huge loss for the Cowboys. You're talking about 52 and a half sacks gone. But if I'm rational about this, even with Micah Parsons on the team, I don't, without a Dak Prescott, they weren't a playoff team last year. So you're talking about somebody who has a tremendous impact on the game, but they still weren't a playoff team last year. So what does it tell me? Dak maybe is the straw that actually stirs the drink with Dallas Cowboys. So that being said, Dallas cannot stop the run. They did get somebody who is a known run stopper in Kenny Clark. Doesn't minimize how huge Micah Parsons is, but they at least, the silver lining for me, the very small silver lining, is they got somebody in the middle of the defense that hopefully can stop the run, and they got first round picks. You know what? I get a chance. I get a mulligan this football season. I get to play golf on Sundays, just in case the Cowboys are awful.
Man, I tell you did an extra job. I'm like, man, if I didn't know any better, I'd be like, okay, maybe.
That's a huge loss. Yeah.
With that being said, give us the final score updates and we'll call it a show, so you can go in there and give your responses to the group.
Well, Charleston, they're big on top of Livingstone, 27-3. That game is getting ready to go into halftime. About 3 minutes and some change before halftime. Virginia State still on top of Barton College, 21-0. That game is getting ready to go into halftime. About 1:55 left for the Virginia State Spartans. Huge on top of Barton College.
Townsend matchup. Can you give me an update in terms of
I got that's a good one. I need to pull that one up real quick and see can I get it.
I think last I looked at Delaware State and Delaware early on, that was still a 0-0. I don't know if there's any changes on that.
I need to pull Towson up on the TV back here. I totally forgot that one was on as well, but I'm waiting. Of course, the computer just moving a little bit slow right now, but yeah, of course. On cue.
No problem. I certainly set you up a little bit from that. Let me see if I can get an update right here. Yes, Townsend is up 10-0. That's 12:30 left in the second half. Delaware State and Delaware still 0-0.
I got Delaware State just kicked the field goal. They just kicked the field goal, 3-0 now.
Who kicked
the field
goal?
Delaware? Delaware State on top of Delaware 3-0. They just literally kicked the field goal.
That's live stats. Some really good stuff. Good going in there.
Second quarter. Yeah.
Yep. So with that being said, thank you for listening inside the HBCU Sports Lab. And make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Again, we want to thank you to listen to Dr. Ville's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday, 6 o'clock Central Standard Time, and starting this Sunday at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time as we give you Sunday edition. We will unveil the top 7 of the major division, and you'll get a chance for all these gentlemen to talk about all the matchups that we kind of led into this and to finish up scores in terms of what's going on today. And obviously, we'll give you all those updates from Saturday and provide a ranking in terms of what happened in week 1 for the major division, what happened in week 0, you would, for the mid-major division. Set you up for some of those Sunday matchups to get you prepared for your week. Enjoy your Monday in terms of those that get to have the Labor Day off. That being said, follow me, Dr. Kenyatta, on Threads, Facebook, and Instagram. DrKenyattaCavil. We look forward to Sunday as we discuss the latest news in the lab. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Facebook, Inside the HBCU Sports Lab on YouTube. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles?
Of course.
Roy?
Lecture.
Dismiss.